Welcome back to this new inspirational video. Today I wanted to talk about thinking and what it actually means to think. Do you know what it means? I mean, obviously most of us in general would say, I know what thinking is, I do it all the time. Then there's other people who would say, I know what thinking is and I'd rather not think at all. I'd rather escape from it and numb my mind and not have to think about anything. But you see, thinking in and of itself is such an important power that we have. Because of the consciousness that we have to understand how to make the best use of it. So when a person says, I'd rather not think, it probably has to do with the fact that they might be thinking about all the bad things that have happened in their lives, or all the things that they don't like currently in their lives, or how their lives have turned out for the moment. And then other times you would say, well, I know what thinking is, but then we are generally speaking involved in a form of mental activity based on current circumstances. So we might analyze something and then sort of contemplate it in our consciousness and think about a little bit what it means, and then we'd say, well, I'm thinking. But real thinking, what is it? What is this power that can help us in our lives? All these great teachers throughout the centuries have said that thought is so important. All these metaphysical books, especially from 100 years ago, specifically talk about thought. And then a few decades later, into the 1900s, Neville Goddard came along and started using the term imagination first and foremost, that we gotta use the imagination. Well, we've talked about that enough times and we will keep talking about that faculty, but for now, let's zoom it in on thinking itself. What is the benefit of thinking? Well, first of all, I want to share with you this point. Real thinking means the building of ideas inside our minds through which we can improve our lives. So to really think means to build concepts in your consciousness on which you can act. And then when you take action on that mental concept that you've built, that idea that is generated inside your conscience by the thoughts that you have been thinking, then you can take action and alter your physical reality. Then you're involved in real thinking. It's something progressive. It helps you to outgrow everything that you're currently facing. That is the power of thinking. Now, going over the past or present circumstances mentally does not constitute thinking, even though we might say it is. But real thinking has to do with improvement and the advancement of our lives. This is a very important thing to consider because it indicates what it means to think big. Sometimes we are told in order to become successful, we must think bigger. Or if we are lacking in some way, we are not thinking big enough. But if we don't understand what real thinking means, then we can never apply this powerful suggestion properly in our lives. So in this case, it literally again means that instead of using your mind to think back on the past, or to only analyze how things are currently, try to grasp that if you start to think about your ideal life, even though it's far beyond your present circumstances, it doesn't matter physically speaking, you can still think about that ideal life that you would like to live. And as you keep thinking about it, keep yourself interested in it mentally, then these thoughts that you're thinking concerning this ideal life will start to develop into ideas. Now, an idea is a group of thoughts that have been brought together. That's what it means. That is what an idea is. So when people say you need a better idea, a great idea in order to advance your life, simply grasp that it means that you have to think along an ideal life, about what you're after. So if I try to give you an example again from my own life and how I use this power, it could be simply about building a YouTube channel all over again, even the writing of a book, even the making of videos. They are thoughts first and foremost in my mind that I have, and I'm aware of them, but they're not physically available to me yet. I have to put in a certain amount of effort and work in order to make it so that it becomes visible for myself, but also visible for you. So I built these thoughts concerning the videos I wanted to make for this channel. I played around with it mentally. I was thinking I want to make inspirational videos. That to me was part of an ideal life, to do this sort of work. So I kept thinking about it, and as I kept thinking about it, I started to notice, okay, if I'm going to make these videos, well, first of all, I need, for example, at least a decent microphone. And second of all, if I'm going to do narrations, I really want to work with some visuals as well along the narration. So it's not just a still image for 10 minutes or longer. Because that is how it used to be for me a couple years ago, because I didn't yet know how I could, use more visuals. I had some ideas, but it would become so expensive to hire all these people constantly for an individual video. We're talking about spending hundreds of dollars for each individual video. Yeah, you can easily tell that it is very expensive, and unless I was already making millions through another business that I could have built, we can all build a business through which we could earn millions if we wanted to, but I didn't. Perhaps you don't. But the point being here is that even though it seemed impossible, as I started thinking about the little details of what my ideal life was about, what it was about for me to make inspirational videos, then, these thoughts all came together where it was like, okay, and good decent microphone, some visuals. I like to work with music as well to go along to complement the message. And, those are like 3 elements of thought for me personally at the time. Then I brought them together, and they formed into what we would call an idea on how I could execute this thought pattern that was going on in my life. So how I could turn it into a physical reality from that moment on. It all came together over a certain period of time. It didn't happen overnight. It took me again a couple years to really figure this one out, even though looking at my videos now, I would never tell anyone, oh, this is so difficult. You can hardly do what I'm doing. I wouldn't ever say that. It isn't difficult. The difficulty lies in becoming aware on how we should go about executing our dreams at times. That is really the difficulty we all face, because we have those dreams, but then we're not aware instantly on how to go about it. But by thinking about it, by having it alive within your consciousness, by simply thinking about, what am I after? What would be the ideal way for me to live? What would be the ideal way for me to execute this passion that I have? And as you keep thinking about it, playing around with it inside your consciousness, more and more thoughts start to group together. That simply means you start to become aware of more and more ways on how to go about it. And then as you keep doing that, suddenly it turns into an idea where okay, I have the full-blown plan of action inside my consciousness, and now I can clearly see that if I were to do all these steps, put them together. First they were thoughts in my mind, but now physically I'm going to put these elements together that I became aware of inside my consciousness. Then I suddenly see something take on physical form. It manifests in my world. This is absolutely awesome. The more you start to contemplate this in your own life, and that is the power that you hold. Again, you don't want to underestimate this power of thinking, even though most people might want to run away of thinking, or they don't want to think at all. There's always been articles and research over the years, so I was told. I never verified these claims, but over the last decades, like last 50 years, I think there were some researches being done in America where they were talking about the fact that most people really don't even want to think. Now, I don't know exactly where it took place or who did that experiment, but that was sort of the conclusion that they came to. Now, this is very important, because if that is true, which it actually is, because it's not difficult to even see that most people don't want to think, we are going to have to take this very serious and start to grasp why it is so important to do it, to start thinking for ourselves. Now, how do we know that most people don't think? Well, it's because most people simply live, again, in a sort of hypnotic state where they're just looking at the physical world and the way it is, and they're allowing that to sort of dictate what they're going to do, how they're going to feel, and what they're going to think about. You see, they're allowing the physical world to control their minds, but if we're going to start thinking for ourselves, again, we are taking control of our own consciousness and making sure that it grows and expands in the best direction possible for us on an individual level. So we learn to think about what we want, and then analyze what we want inside our consciousness. And as we keep doing that, more and more thoughts start to add to that inside consciousness, which then turns into an idea on which we can physically act. And this is how you want to look at it. I can promise you this works for any goal, no matter what your dream is. If you really start to think about that, what you're after, what that goal is that you want to realize, no matter what it is, as long as you keep it alive within your consciousness day in and out, you start to become aware of more and more thoughts inside your mind that if I add this to that dream, it would make it easier for me to act upon it, or it makes it easier for me to realize this dream. And then you keep thinking along those lines until you find the right ideas. That is the trick. That is the beauty of consciousness all over again. But most people sadly find that too much work already. They want everything to be thrown into their laps. But the beauty and the joy of living comes in from us understanding the creative power that we possess, that was given to us by the universe itself, so that we can make of our lives whatever we want. And this also occurs in the spiritual realms of life. This is not just a physical thing, but if you're asleep, for example, in a lucid dream, the only way to control the dream realm at that point is, again, if you decide through your consciousness on what's going to take place. And that's the exact same way it is physically speaking as well. But yet we're reluctant to do it, and because we're reluctant to do it here, no wonder we're also reluctant to do it in the spiritual realms of life, and hence most people never have the experience of a lucid dream to begin with. And that is very sad, I think, because it can make such a huge difference for people if they have those dreams and can actually look at their spiritual body, so to speak, or at least they're aware that they're not in time-space reality as they normally know it, and they also realize, well, where am I gonna go now? Okay, let me think of something that I want to experience, or let me imagine something. It doesn't matter, either of the two works, and then you're gonna go there. It's absolutely beautiful, and that is what it means to think. When we say think for yourself, we mean build ideas for yourself inside your consciousness. And remember, an idea is nothing but a group of thoughts brought together, on which you can then act, physically speaking. Really take this into account and understand the huge power that you hold within your own consciousness. It's absolutely beautiful once you take the time to think about what you want every single day, and only about what you want. There will be moments for all of us where we are thinking about what we don't want, and then we just have to become aware of when it happens and then get back on track again and start thinking about what we do want. The results that we are after, the sort of lifestyle we want to live, instead of the one we're currently living. If we want a better lifestyle, we're going to have to think about what that lifestyle is all about. Then really start analyzing it inside your consciousness until you gain the awareness, until you've expanded your awareness far enough that you can take actual action on your dream. And that's how thoughts turn into things, into results, into manifestations. Absolutely beautiful. Well, that was a message I wanted to share with you today, and I hope you take it to heart. Now, if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing to receive inspirational videos on a regular basis. And with that being said, dear viewer, never forget that we are the dreamers.